Okay, so we have one more important artifact that we need to look at before we'll proceed to the next concept, which is business analysis techniques. I've dropped all the sample templates. So there are a lot of other artifacts which normally testers prepare. So, but I've just yeah, copied them into the drive for your reference. Okay. Yeah, in fact, two actually. So one is the gap analysis, and then the other one is request for proposal. Just give me a second. I'm opening up. Okay, so what you see on the screen is a request for proposal or request for information template. So this is a template that we normally use for vendor assessment. Okay, so we'll study more about what is vendor assessment when we look at the BA techniques. So this is where you work for a bank or maybe an organization, and then you hire an external vendor, okay, to satisfy or meet any of the skill gaps that your organization doesn't provide, right? So you prepare a request for information or request for proposal template. So you as a business analyst, right? So you would be working with your stakeholders and gathering requirements. Okay, so you will list all the requirements here in this section, and then this section that you see here, where you see the checkboxes A, N, and C. This is something that is filled by different vendors. Okay, your sales team will circulate this document to different vendors, and what they will do is, so for each of the requirements that you have documented, they will say, okay, whether this is available or not. If it's available, they'll check this A, and not available N, and C is it's not available, but they can customize the solution for us. Okay, and so they may also add another additional column towards the right, where they'll give more details on any customization, etc. Sometimes they may also come back to you asking for more information on any of the requirements that you have documented. Okay, so we will, so our role as a business analyst here is to gather requirements and then pass on this request for proposal or request for information document to our front-end sales team, and they would work with different vendors in the market to get. And once this is filled by different vendors, right, then the multiple RFPs will come back to us, and then we should work with stakeholders and decide which vendor to finalize. Okay, so that technique is vendor assessment. So we look at, for example, if there is a critical requirement and one of the vendors has said, okay, not available, right? So maybe that could be a deciding factor or critical factor for not going ahead with the vendor. So this is a template that we use normally for vendor assessment. So what is vendor assessment and what are the different factors that need to be considered is something we look at much more in detail when we look at vendor assessment BA technique. Okay, so the last template is something that we also prepare quite often. So this is a very basic version of the gap analysis template. So you can add like more number of details or more number of columns into this. But what you do is, so you document what is the current status or the as is state, and then you document the target state or the to be state and what are the gaps between them. Okay, and you list out all the different categories where you want to analyze do the gap analysis. Okay, and so this is a pretty standard template, but you can add like more details like module or functionality depending on your organization. So generally your organization will have a predefined gap analysis template. So it is used to understand the as is state, define the to be state, and work out on gaps. Okay, so you can also include another column where you will see how to minimize the gap. Okay, so is the gap a showstopper or not? So you can keep adding like more columns into this template.
And Ravi, this is something different in different language.
Yeah, so I mean, this is just a like a test version, so I have not put any gaps actually. So this is a sample template.
So if you can, I mean, share a couple of example, that would be really helpful, like one or two at least.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so maybe something like, okay, so let's say if you're looking at user interface. Okay, so for example, let's assume that let's take we have a uh, trading platform. Okay, so we are working on a trading platform, and the current status user interface, and then let's say I will add a module here. Okay, so I'll add something called module. Okay, so maybe let's take a simple thing called login. Okay, and current status is a user has to enter his LAN ID and password to log in. Okay, then the target state, maybe what we want to do is we want to enable single sign-on. So which means a user who has successfully entered his user ID and password to log into the laptop, right? Then he need not enter. Okay, so that is the target state, for example. Enable single. Let me increase the font size. Okay, so enable single sign-on. Single sign-on means, let's say if I'm an employee, I log into the laptop. The moment I log into laptop and I open this application, right, I need not enter my user ID and password again. So it automatically picks up. So this will save a lot of time, right? Okay, single sign-on to make user login process more efficient. Okay, so what is the gap? So gap is integration with Active Directory, employees. Okay.
So, Ravi, related to this gap analysis,
Mhm.
this particular scenario that you have put is a small scenario. Now, normally, what is the effective way of getting this gap analysis into, like the current status and the target status? What is the way out for it actually? Because this is a normal one, we know it. But suppose it's a kind of a case which is not normal kind of, which we kind of get into. So any way out for it, or how is it? Because there are so many things you need to know for the process to go through.
Yeah, that's right. So that actually, so it depends on how effectively you're able to categorize your different sections, right, where you will analyze the gap. Okay, so that's one thing, and we'll cover a lot more about how to effectively cover all the requirements, including gap analysis, right? When we discuss the intelligent questioning session,
Okay.
so how to
Okay.
not miss out on any requirements.
Okay.
So then you will include the action to minimize gap. So for example, install single sign-on security service. Okay. Then maybe you can add like one more column where you say showstopper requirement. Okay, so if you don't develop this requirement, is it like, okay, will it impact the whole project or not? Okay, so for example, yes, okay. So then you can include something like mitigation plan. Okay, and then you can work out a mitigation plan with your security architects, etc. So this can be elaborated, but the key idea is that, okay, you document the current state, gather the target state, and come up with the gaps between current state and target state. Okay, so how to ensure completeness of this is something that it's more of a questioning technique. So we'll cover when we discuss intelligent questioning session. Yeah. Is it useful, Vijay? Do you need any more information?
No, I think I got it.
Yeah, okay. So if there are no more questions on the BA artifacts, right? Probably we'll move to BA techniques. So when we are discussing about BA techniques, right? There are like numerous techniques, and every technique is something that you can use on a day-to-day basis, right? But there are like few techniques which are like really useful, and so these are some of the techniques which are also prescribed by the International Institute of Business Analysis. Okay. So quite commonly used techniques. So I'll be taking you through each of these techniques. So there are like 20 different techniques which are commonly used. So the idea is that, okay, so you don't need to know all of these techniques. Okay, so what you need to know is you should know, okay, so there is a technique, there's a technique like this which exists. Okay, and you should know what is the technique, when to use it, what are the advantages and what are the disadvantages. And then you should know, okay, so I know this technique, but what is the scenario in which I have to use this technique? Okay, so the bottom line is you don't need to master the technique. You should just know that, okay, there's a technique that exists, and when you come across a circumstance or scenario, right, then you recollect and then you start using it. Okay, so that's the idea. So I'll be introducing you to 20 different techniques which you can use at various stages in your business analysis practice. When it comes to interview, right, very rarely people will ask you about, okay, so can you explain me what is this technique, or can you tell me how did you conduct this technique? Okay, so that's not a question that you can expect. This is more of learning that you will use when you land up your job. Okay. Okay, so let's get started. I'm sharing my screen. Let me close other templates. Just give me a second. I think. Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. Okay, so we'll be covering like different techniques. The first one is the acceptance and evaluation criteria. So we looked at what is acceptance criteria, right, in detail, and can anyone like summarize? So let's say if somebody asks you what is an acceptance criteria. No? Okay. Yeah. Yeah, Vijay.
So acceptance criteria is basically this is the actual outcome of a functionality.
Yeah,
Like for
brilliant.
example,
Yeah.
when we have to transfer funds, so using NEFT, RTGS, or IMPS, so the application should be able to process these type of transactions. That would be our acceptance criteria.
Yeah. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. So basically, so acceptance criteria, right? So so you define the requirements, you define the outcomes or conditions that must be met, okay, in order for your solution that you developed is acceptable to your users. Okay, so that's the acceptance criteria. So it describes the minimum set of requirements that must be met in order for your solution to go to production, right? So that's the acceptance criteria. So for example, you look at let's say let's assume that we are working on trading platform. Okay, so what is the minimum basic criteria or outcome that needs to be met for the trading platform to go to production or go live? So they should be able to book trades, right? So that is the minimum set of criteria. What about the look and feel and branding of the platforms? That is not an important thing, right? So acceptance criteria always deals with like minimum set of requirements that must be met. Okay. Whereas your evaluation criteria deals with so when you have a set of requirements and then you have like multiple solutions that satisfy your set of requirements. Okay, so then your evaluation criteria, it defines a set of criteria that you need to consider when you're so and you rank your solutions based on that criteria, and then you decide which one is ideal for your requirement. Okay, so you look at criteria like what is the cost, performance, usability, and the functionality, how close is that functionality to your users needs. So you'll consider all of these, and then you will decide which of the solutions is suitable. Okay, so that's the evaluation criteria. So it's pretty straightforward technique. So if you look at the strengths of these, right? So the agile methodologies, all agile projects will require acceptance criteria. So acceptance criteria is mandatory for all user stories that you write in agile projects. Okay, and so if you work in like waterfall projects where you have like fixed contracts that are non-negotiable, or if you're working on regulatory projects, maybe acceptance criteria is not a viable solution, because then you have to meet like every single requirement, right? So it's like when you're let's say when you're developing a software that will help the flight to that will help you to launch a aeroplane, right? So you need to take care of every single requirement. None of the requirements are not negotiable. So in such cases, maybe acceptance criteria is not really a usable technique. Okay. So evaluation criteria, so it helps us to assess what is the return on investment of each of these solutions that we identified, and helps us to make decisions. Okay. Uh, so these are some of the key strengths and limitations of these techniques, but it's pretty straightforward. So I'm not going much into the details of this because we have already looked at it. Okay, so backlog management is also another technique where we looked at the backlog refinement, right? So that whole process is called backlog management. So this is also one of the techniques. So whatever we looked at backlog refinement, right? So all of that is covered in backlog management. So if this is where we actually record all the features, and then we add estimates, we add required details, we order them in terms of priority, right? And so that's the whole process is called backlog management. And so backlog can consist of, as we discussed, so it can consist of new features, and which can be in terms of user stories. You can have non-functional requirements, you can have design related requirements, you can have defects or any risk related items and all of that, right? So you can um, everything is part of backlog refinement. So the only limitation or disadvantage, potential disadvantage, is a lot of times people focus on adding features into backlog, and we don't focus on removing unwanted or stale features, right? And eventually the backlog becomes so bulky and cumbersome that they're difficult to manage. Okay, so that's the only disadvantage of having these backlogs. Okay, so this is again another straightforward technique that we looked at previously.
So, Ravi,
Yeah.
one query here. So, as you told, it becomes bulky. Like old means we keep on adding, and time becomes such that there are a lot of stale stuff that we don't use it, and it keeps on kind of growing. Kind of the numbers
Right.
grows.
Yeah.
So, how do you means how do we kind of take it out?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So which is why a lot of teams, what they do is, at least in my experience, they think backlog refinement is a one-time activity. Okay, so when you kick off a project, right, then they create this backlog and they keep on adding new requirements, okay, new features to it. So you need to make it a disciplined habit that you refine your backlog. So for example, if you're working in a 2-week sprint, spend at least 2 to 3 hours on backlog refinement. So even Scrum guide prescribes that in a 2-week sprint, you should spend like at least 2 to 3 hours in refining your backlog. And when you're refining your backlog, it's more of a discipline where you go through all the features in the backlog and then remove whatever is not required. Okay, so maybe I normally what I do is, so we created a in JIRA, we created a new status called uh, postponed. Okay, so what we do is, so we created a new status called postponed, and any feature where we added to the backlog and we didn't pick it up for the next 3 months, right? So we go and blindly tag it to postpone. Okay, so which means it will be delivered sometime in the future, and then we uh, move it to a different set of flow, and it doesn't show up in our backlog. Okay, so we added a Jira filter to exclude all such, but we still have them. So next year, maybe when you want to see what are some of the future requirements, right? So you can always go through that. So that's one way.
Okay.
Okay. Also, the other disadvantage is when you have these stale features in your backlog, right? So, and let's say you created a feature, you added required details, you estimated it, and then and then you added the business value, and maybe you picked it up after 6 months. Okay, so the details that you added 6 months back may not be relevant anymore, correct? Okay, and so the details are lost over time, and the information may be outdated. So that's another reason why we need to always keep backlog up to date.
And you told 2 to 3 hours. Is it for week or how exactly is it? 2 to 3
For sprint, per sprint.
per sprint. Okay.
Yeah, assuming that, okay, for the purpose of this training, sprint is 2 weeks. Okay, so we are following 2 weeks sprint.
2 weeks. So one sprint is 2 weeks. So within 2 weeks, at least 2 to 3 hours should be devoted for this backlog management.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
what are the various column do we have in this backlog?
Sorry, Vijay, can you repeat?
I mean, what are the various column we have for backlog?
Oh, various statuses, right? Okay, so yeah, so
Not
that's a good question.
statuses, basically statuses as well as various column. For example, we are just maintaining backlog in the Excel. Okay.
Hmm.
Actually, why I'm asking, because do we have story point estimation in the backlog itself?
Yeah. I actually, so you will get a lot more clarity on this when I take you through the JIRA mock screens, Vijay. So I'll show you exactly how a story looks like, how a backlog looks like, how a sprint looks like. I'll show you all of that when we look at the JIRA mock screens. Yeah. Okay, so the next technique is balance scorecard. Anyone heard of this technique or used it? Okay, so the balance scorecard technique, right? It's strategic.
Is it kind of putting value to it and then kind of putting a scorecard getting out of it?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, so you almost, yeah. So maybe it's a crude way to say that. Uh, but yeah, so we'll understand more. Yeah, you're almost there, Anshuman. So balance scorecard, right? It's a strategic planning and management technique. Okay, so whenever you want to define and define and measure the performance of your organization or business or any activity or project or process that you're working on, right? Then you should think of balance scorecard. Okay, think of defining and measuring performance of anything, then think of balance scorecard. Okay, then so how do you measure performance? So you measure performance by understanding, measuring, and optimizing factors that create sustainable performance. Okay, and so how is this derived? So how are these value drivers derived? So they are derived from the organization's vision and strategy. Okay, so just try to grab as much as possible whatever I'm explaining. Then we'll look at a example of how a balance scorecard is created. Okay, maybe that will help you connect dots. But when I'm like explaining different points, just try to grab as much as you can. Okay, so a balance scorecard, it comprises of four different dimensions. Okay, so the first thing is we develop tangible objectives. Um, the four dimensions are, so we have learning and growth, business process, customer, and financial. So these are the four dimensions in which we plan our strategy. Okay, so to measure performance of, so here we're talking of measuring performance of, let's say, organization. Okay, so we look at four dimensions. One is learning and growth, business process, customer, and financial. The reason we have selected these four dimensions, I mean, it's not that I've selected, it's the standard, uh, it's standard technique. So when you focus on learning and growth, right, your business process will improve, correct? And when your business process will improve, your customers will be happy, right? And when your customers are happy, your financial numbers will be good. So everything is interlinked. So which is why these 4 dimensions are very carefully chosen to measure strategic performance. Okay. And for these 4 dimensions, you look at what are the tangible objectives. Okay, so what are the objectives that you want to achieve, and what are the specific measures? Okay, so what do you want to measure, and what are the target outcomes, and what initiatives are you taking to meet those target outcomes, right? To achieve them, right? So when let's say when you're looking at learning and growth, so learning and growth, so you measure, let's say, the employee training and learning. Okay, so you measure the product and service innovation. So you measure like you focus on corporate culture, you measure on training people, mentoring people, knowledge sharing, technology improvements, etc. So all of them will come under knowledge, learning and growth. Okay, so basically when you're defining learning and growth, right, to achieve our organization's vision, how will we sustain our ability to change and improve? Okay, so that's the question that you need to ask when you're thinking of learning and growth. So next, when you talk of business process, right? So this includes metrics that indicate how well our organization is operating, okay, and how efficient are our processes, okay, and so do they meet our customers' needs? Okay, so you need to ask, okay, to satisfy our customers, what business processes must we excel at? Okay, so how should we strengthen our business process to satisfy our customers? So that's the way to look at it. Then the third dimension is customer. So this is the most important one. The customer dimension includes metrics that focus on customer satisfaction and delivering value to the customer. Okay, so these metrics are indicators of how well we are able to satisfy our customers, how satisfied our customers are with our products and services. Okay, so the goal here is to achieve our organization's vision. How should we appear to our customers? How should our customers perceive us? Okay, so that's the goal. Then the fourth one is you look at the financial dimension. So this indicates what is financially necessary to realize our strategy. Okay, so it could be profitability, revenue growth, or value. So the question that you need to ask here is, to succeed financially, how should we appear to our customers? Okay. So if you look at the root of the balance scorecard, right? So you have objectives, measures, targets, and all of them must clearly support the destination statement. Okay. So you should always begin with an end state in your mind. So let's say if you're working on creating a balance scorecard for your organization, right? So what is the destination statement? What is the vision and strategy of your organization? So that should be the starting point. Okay, so let's say if you're creating a balance scorecard for a new process that you're establishing, okay, so what is the end outcome that you want to achieve by that new process? Okay, always start with the end. Okay, end in your mind, and define what is the destination statement. If it's an organization, then define what is the mission, vision, and statement. Okay, if it's a new product, so what is the value that you want to achieve? What is it trying to achieve? So look at the big picture and then start decomposing further down. Okay, so a sample so a sample destination statement, let's say if you are working for an organization, right, a sample destination statement or vision statement could be something like this: provide world-class services at a reasonable price. Okay, so that's a sample destination statement, and then we drill that destination statement into these 4 dimensions to achieve that world to achieve that destination where we provide world-class services to customers at a fair or reasonable price. How should we how should we structure our learning and growth? How should our business process look like? Okay, so how should we how should our customers look at us? Okay, so how should our financial metrics look like? Okay. Okay, so all of these need to be considered. Then for each of these, right, so we need to measure um, measure measure each of these objectives and also what are the targets. Okay. So when you're measuring something, right, so they must support a business objective. Okay, so you can't just measure everything. So you should measure whatever is supporting your end or destination statement. Okay, and another thumb rule is if you're not able to measure something, right, just don't include it into the balance scorecard. So that is another thing. um, the the second tip is, so if you're not able to, if that is not helping your organization to move forward or achieve your goal, right, then don't include it. So include only factors or objectives which will help progress your organization. Okay, for example, let's say you have a lot of attrition in your organization. Okay, so will that help your organization to grow forward? No, right? So that's a lagging factor. Always include leading factors when you're preparing balance scorecard. Okay, so then so when you're looking at targets, right, so don't just look at technology or business related targets, look at people and process targets as well. Okay, and the target should be measurable and quantifiable. So don't put like an end state or a perfect state as a target. Okay, and always define green, red, and amber and track your targets as you go. Okay, so we'll look at a sample uh, balance scorecard. Okay, so this, what you see on the screen is a sample balance scorecard. Okay, so this is a sample balance scorecard, or let's say we are working for a bank. Okay, so we are working for, let's say, an XYZ bank. Okay, what is the vision statement of our bank? Okay, so the vision statement or the destination statement that I've said is contribute to economic recovery by offering helping hand to small businesses to tide over their working capital requirements. Right, so this looks like a good end statement, right, for our bank. So now we have the 4 dimensions on the y-axis, and then we measure each of these dimensions against the 4 metrics. Okay, so we define objectives, measures, targets, and initiatives. Okay, so in order to achieve this destination, so we'll start with learning and growth. Okay, so what is the objective? So we need to monitor the demand for loans. Okay, so we should have the ability to learn learn how to monitor the demand for loans. Okay, so how do we know, how do we measure that? So number of loans that are being taken out. Okay, so number of loans that are being disbursed, maybe per month or per week. Okay, so we define the target so that, okay, so 40 new loans per week. Okay, so that's the target. And to meet that target, how do we achieve that target? So we adjust the interest rate as needed. So interest rate of the loans will be adjusting it. Okay. So the next is internal business process. So what should the objective be? The business process should be redefined to increase lending. Okay. And how do we, sorry, how do we measure the increase in lending? Quantity of money being loaned to the customers, right? So that is a good measure. Okay, so then you will define your change your business process to increase the amount of loan that will be lent. So you increase the limit to $15,000, for example. So that's just an example. And and then you also decrease the interest rate to make this happen. Okay, now we look at from a customer angle. So what is the objective that your customer will expect? So your customer will expect decrease in loan interest rate, right? For you to increase this to meet this vision. Okay. So what will we do? So we'll not decrease the interest rate by a huge percentage, but we'll decrease them by a smaller percentage. Okay. And the target is again measurable target. So we'll decrease it by 1%. Okay, and after we decrease, what are the initiatives that we need take? So we advertise the decrease in interest rate to customers. Okay, so that they are aware of it. So what are the if in terms of financial, right, to meet this uh, destination statement? So our objective is to increase margins. Okay, so how do we measure that we have increased margins? Okay, increase in dollar profit. Okay, and so what is the target? Okay, so 25% increase in revenue, right? How do we make that happen? So we lower the interest rate so that lending can be increased. So this is a simple example of a balanced scorecard for a bank where the destination statement is to help or contribute to the economic recovery by helping by providing loans to small businesses. Any questions? Is it clear or?
I have a question.
Yeah,
So this is prepared by a BA,
correct. Yeah,
balance
yeah.
scorecard, like I said. So generally, which stakeholder is more involved? Because this is more like gap analysis of where we are and what we want to achieve and what initiatives we need to take. So is it a very high level thing that happens or how?
Yeah, so it's more of strategy planning and management. Okay, so it's not something very in detail. So you have your this is your vision statement, right? That your organization has. Then to fulfill this vision statement, so you are preparing an actionable strategy using balance scorecard. Okay, so this is a more of a strategic planning and where you're measuring your organization's performance of meeting this vision statement. So you will be working with like really top stakeholders in defining this. So you'll be working with like business heads, product heads in defining the balance scorecard.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Hi, Rafi. I have a question.
Mm.
Okay. Literally, I'm not understand this one. The BA techniques, where exactly we need to use on the realistic way. That means that see, generally we will either we are working on the BRDs or else FSD and as well as user stories based on that one what requirement we have.
Mm.
But in these requirements, we will do the analysis, what is there required and how to implement the solution and the system, how can we design. So these things we can cover. But in this case, where exactly we will use this technique and how can we know that one, which techniques we need to use and what condition levels?
Okay. So the second question, right? How can we know which technique we use? So in the next two sessions, right? So we'll try to understand these 20 different techniques, and then I'll give you a template on which technique to use at what stage. Okay, so that template will be like your reference to identify which technique to use at what stage. So to your first question, right? So as you rightly said, most of the business analysts, right? In fact, 99% of the business analysts, so they will be majorly involved in, let's say, so creating user stories. And if you're working in traditional waterfall, you'll be creating BRDs, converting them into FSDs. Okay, so or you will be involved in like traditional techniques like elicitation techniques like conducting workshops, brainstorming, focus group discussions, right? Interviews, questionnaires, right? So balance scorecard. So for example, recently, I've used balance scorecard to identify. So we have rolled out a new policy called zero defect policy. Okay. So then our information technology head. So they've asked each of the business analysts in the team to come up with a balanced scorecard on how we'll achieve this. Okay. So basically, so what is the vision statement here? Vision statement here is ensure customer satisfaction by making sure there are like zero defects, right? So then we look at, so what do we need to do in terms of learning and growth? Okay. Then we look at how do we improve our internal business process to make sure that that zero defect strategy happens. Okay, so how do we focus? How should our customers perceive us? Okay, and what is required in terms of financials? Okay, so how much additional cost is required? So for example, if you look at learning and growth, right, so it's more about how to train people on different business process, and then minimum testing standards, and then how to effectively gather requirements, how to plan requirements ahead, right? So and so we internal business process. Okay, so for example, this is more of I'm explaining how we use to solve an IT problem or an IT vision statement. Okay, so this is really powerful technique where you can apply for any situation where you want to measure the performance. Okay, so here the vision statement is zero defects whenever any IT change goes into production. So that's the so how do we measure the zero defects? How do we achieve? How do we plan it strategically, right? So then internal business process. So then we check that, okay, so there is a lot of times the defects that are going into production, right? They are happening because we are not doing performance or load testing. Okay, so then we had a brainstorming session with our testers in the across projects, and they said, okay, so we don't have enough performance testing tools, automation tools, which is why we normally skip performance testing. Okay, so then we added a financial criteria that, okay, objective is to procure performance testing tools. Okay, then we said, okay, so how much budget can we allocate for that? Okay, what is the target increase? Okay, and then what initiatives are we taking? So we put a business case to get funding to procure these performance testing tools. Okay, and then we measure these at the end. Okay, so we develop a performance testing tool that will help us test the performance of any change before it goes to production in, let's say, like 1 hour. Okay, so that's the target that we define, and the initiative is to get a performance testing tool like JMeter, etc. So we have looked at like various tools. So you can use it at a process level. So let's say another example could be, let's say your organization, you must have heard of this climate neutral products now, right? So a lot of organizations, they have to lend to organizations which are into green energy conservation, right? Climate change control. Okay, so your vision statement for your organization would be that, okay, so help investors and customers to meet their climate or energy conservation targets. Okay, so they have in our team, so our trading head, they have come up with this vision statement, and they asked me to, okay, so can you come up with a strategic plan and strategy and management technique where where we can ensure that this is met. Okay, so and what all is required. So then I've created a balanced scorecard. So there are numerous ways or scenarios in which you can use this.
So this is what I understand. It's just correct me if my understanding is wrong. Okay.
Yeah.
This is moreover like a organization wise. Okay, the structure and the process. Okay, to improve or else to develop a quality of the product or quality of the service. So these are all it covers as part of my development life cycle process, which is mostly covered by at organization level quality management team. But why the BA is required? For example, if I take, okay, these are all, it looks like how the CMMI level organizations, okay, so we need to maintain, it's a certain process, how to do the testing and what stages we need to release for the production, whether it's strategies, all these it's organization levels, right? But again, why the BA has to do this one?
Okay, so why? So your question is why a BA has to do it, right? Because so in my example, right, that I gave, so if an IT team, so for example, so we are part of global markets trading. Okay.
Okay.
And so the global markets trading business head, so he came up, so any changes that are related to global markets technology should have zero defects. Okay. So now can you tell me which team should take care of this?
It's a quality management team, right?
So there is no quality management team in our bank.
Bank obviously have, it's a bank obviously have a certain guidelines to process. There is no any bank, it's like a, until unless any uh, small financial banks, that means it's like a any Karar Vaishya bank, it's like a, any uh, what we call it, it's not for the big banks, it's like a small consumer banks like that. Okay, I can understand they don't have the any proper guidelines and proper process. Okay, so it will be processed. For example, if I take it's a SBI, ICICI
Yeah.
bank,
Okay. So
obviously they
let
have
me stop you there, Kader. So do you are you saying that small banks they don't have business analysts? Or?
no. There is a business analyst. Okay,
Yeah.
but
So
the
my question
organization
is
have a
simple.
process, right? Mhm.
So if you don't have a quality management team, who has to do it?
Uh, and I don't have any idea.
Okay.
Any
And also the other thing is, so this is a valid business analysis technique because it is also prescribed as one
Mhm.
of the important techniques for a business analyst by Indian International Institute of Business Analysis. So you can also refer the IIBA guidelines. They are
Yeah, I
prescribed that.
saw.
Yeah.
Yeah, I seen it. Okay, the techniques it is there. Okay, the techniques is there. I can see that one. But one thing I don't understand. Okay, where exactly we will use these techniques and how is it useful for our preparing of the BRDs,
Okay.
FSD,
So I think so I think you're thinking maybe like a business analyst role is only to prepare BRD, user story, and FSD, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay.
The
So that's
solution
where the
provider.
issue is. Probably I'll maybe talk to you separately, Kadar,
Okay.
because a business analyst role is much more than preparing these three artifacts. So, but
Mhm.
traditionally, so the mindset is that okay, that these are the only three deliverables, but probably we can have a broader discussion on this. So I'll maybe talk to you separately.
Yeah, sure. No problem. Okay.
Okay, so we move to the next one. So which is mind mapping. Okay, so mind mapping, you must have heard of this, right? So whenever you're joining a new project and then you have like zero understanding of the project, okay, and then you have like a lot of unknowns, and then you just facilitate your first requirement gathering session or no, information gathering session with stakeholders, right? And they have shared like multiple people have shared like different ideas, okay, from all directions, and you're because you're new to that domain or because you're new to that project, you're not able to create a logical structure around the ideas and information and thoughts that are put forward in that meeting. Okay, so mind mapping is a good technique where you can logically structure them. Okay, so think of mind mapping more like a note taking technique that captures thoughts, ideas, and then you can put information and align them in a linear fashion. Okay, so you can use like images, words, colors, relationships, etc., various things to when you're creating a mind map. Okay, and so you can develop a mind map after you finish the meeting, or maybe if you have like really patient users, right, users with a lot of patience, so you can create mind map on the go as well. Okay, um, so we'll look at a simple example on how to create a mind map and what is a use case. I've taken a general use case. So but before we proceed with that, so we look at like different concepts that you know in relation to a mind map. Okay, so in mind map you have a main topic. So the main topic of a mind map is the actual thought or concept or the idea. Okay, so for which you get into the requirements meeting. Okay, and then you have topics. So you have topics that are generated that are branching out of the main topic. Okay, and then so you can have like subtopics for these topics as well. Okay, so branches are nothing but the connections or linkage between a topic and a subtopic. Okay, so those are branches. Okay, and you have keywords as well. So keywords are like single words used to articulate the nature of association between topics or subtopics, and they're connected by a branch. Okay, so how do you connect a topic and a subtopic? Okay, so that you can use keywords, right? And you can use like colors and images to make it more interesting. Okay, so that's the other thing. And so the advantages of using a mind map is, so it's like a really effective collaboration and communication tool, especially when you have a uh, lot of data which is unorganized. Okay, so you're not able to organize data in a non-linear fashion, right? That's when you can use mind map. Okay, so the limitation says it can be used as a brainstorming tool, so where you document ideas and create associations. So this will kind of inhibit any new idea generation. So it's not a brainstorming tool, so it's more like information structuring tool. You can think of like that. Okay. Um, so some the other challenge or limitation of a mind map is, so you may so when you're, especially when you're new to the project, right, and then you create a mind map, the mind map that you created may be difficult to maybe difficult to explain, or maybe you'll not have a shared understanding across different stakeholders. Okay, so you create a mind map and then you have a certain understanding, but there could be other stakeholders who may not have the same understanding, but at least this will help you to logically structure your thoughts, right? So that's the advantage. Okay, so maybe I'll show you a sample mind map.
Ravi, can you tell me what was the branch? Topic was subtopic kind of, but what was
So
the branch?
branch is something that connects your topic, and subtopic is a branch.
But it's not related, means it's not the direct topic, but something related to that. That is what branch, right?
No, branch is something which connects your topic and subtopic. So just a connector. It's just a connector. 1 second. So I'm just looking at. Okay, so I think I have to show you a tool. Maybe Anshuman, so I'm just sharing a tool. Probably that will give you better understanding. Okay. Okay, so I'm just sharing a screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, Ravi.
Okay. So this is a classic example of a mind map. Okay. So you see the main idea here, right? Then you have subtopics, and then you have keywords that are connecting. And so these are the branches, Anshuman. So the connectors, right? The connectors that are going are the branches. Okay. Is it clear?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's kind of a diagrammatic way, but from project point of view, how do we predict it? Like what has to be put where?
Yeah. So maybe I'll just give you a simple real life example. Okay. So let's say if you want to organize a birthday for your daughter. Okay. So what is the main idea? Okay. So birthday, right? Okay. So to celebrate birthday, right? What all do we need to do? Okay. So we need to organize a party, right? So that's the first subtopic, right? Then we need to finalize gifts, correct? Then we need to finalize location, correct? Then we need to finalize decoration, right? Right. So now you see, right? So this is the main topic. Celebrating daughter's birthday is the main topic. And then you had 4 subtopics, right? Decoration, location, gifts, and party, right? So you see, when we started off with the birthday party, right? So we didn't have any logical idea on how we want to achieve. So then we are creating a simple mind map. Okay. So the keyword that will link your main topic and the subtopic is, okay, organize party. Okay. Then the keyword here that we'll use is finalize location. Okay. Then here we'll use is, okay, buy gifts. Okay. And here we'll say finalize decoration. Okay. Then party. Okay. So then you will see, okay, so party. This is again a connector. Okay. So the circle is a connector. So then you will have like another subtopic. So party, what do you need? Okay. Vegetarian and non-vegetarian, right? Then you can have gifts. Okay. Take home gifts, and then maybe some chocolates, and then maybe like some magic show or something. Okay. So you're getting it, right? So we are actually branching out. So we are taking ideas and then creating a mind map on how we plan to organize a birthday party. Okay. So that's when mind map is useful, when you have like a lot of ideas and your ideas are not structured, right? So then you use a mind map. Okay. Similarly, you can use it for any new project. Okay. So for example, let's say if I'm let's take our net banking example itself. Okay. So we'll say, let's say we are setting up a new net banking from scratch. Okay. So we can say set up net banking application, right? Then what do we need to set up net banking? Okay, requirements, business requirements. Okay, then we need like infrastructure. Okay, then we need SDLC process, for example. Then we'll say branding. Okay, how should the net banking look like? So now business requirements, right? So we'll say functional and non-functional. Okay, infrastructure, you will say application server, then database server, then operating system, right? Then SDLC process, so you will say like CI/CD tools, then project management tools, then branding. Okay, so branding, you'll say logo. Okay, then colors for login screen. Okay, branding for dashboard. Okay, so now so initially when we started off, right? So when I wrote this main topic, I didn't have this clarity, but now when I created this mind map, right? So I exactly know what all are required for me to set up this net banking application. You know, it's not like, this is not like a BRD or an FSD, but I'm creating a mind map, a logical, you know, linkage between various topics, subtopics in my mind on what I need to achieve, what I need to do to achieve this main topic. Is it making sense?
So Ravi, can we say that the different means the different branches colors, no?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a mind means, as you told, it's a the different people have different mind means stories from their side, right? So we are kind of taking inputs from them and then mapping it to get at a exact output, correct?
Yeah, that's right. So you organized, you facilitated this meeting as a business analyst. Okay, so you never worked on setting up a new business, new net banking application. Okay, so you went with a blank state of mind into a meeting, and then someone said, okay, did you gather functional requirements? You should take care of non-functional. Then the infra guy said, okay, so did you look at application server? Did you look at database server, operating system? Okay, what about CI/CD tools? So how do we manage code repository? So how do we manage deployment? Okay, so then did you look at the branding and logo of net banking? Okay, so then what you do is, so you went into the meeting as a blank state, and because you didn't have knowledge, now you gathered all these pointers, then you created this mind map. Now you clearly know. Okay, so for the infrastructure, I need to engage my infrastructure team. Okay, for the SDLC process, I need to engage my tooling team. Okay, for business, for functional and non-functional requirements, I need to bring my BA team. Okay, so that's there. Then for the branding, I need to bring in my UX designers. Okay, so who will help with branding. Okay, so you created a mind map, and then you can carve out the next steps from this.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what about this from the one that there are three branches kind of? What do we say for that? Like from one there are three, then from one there is two. So
These are
anything that has to be
connectors. So
mentioned
these are
in that
like again subtopics, right? So
subtopics.
yeah.
Okay.
So anything that's connecting a topic to subtopic or a subtopic to subtopic is a branch. Okay. So all these lines are branches. Okay. And wherever I've said this one, right? Finalize, organize, and all these are keywords. Okay. So it's keywords define the relationship between your topic and subtopic.
So we can write some topic on that also, right?
Where?
Like suppose that three subtopics that has gone no up, logo and something is mentioned there.
Yeah, here.
Logo, color, and branding. So
Yeah.
before that, we can put a topic to it also, right?
Yeah, you can put and this branding for dashboard, right? It can go into like 3 more topics also, subtopics also again.
Okay, fine.
Yeah. Okay, so another useful tool that you can normally use. So we'll cover maybe like one more technique before we call it a day. Okay. Okay, so the next technique is the concept model. So what is a concept model? Concept model is, so when you is a technique where you can organize the business vocabulary that's needed to consistently and thoroughly communicate the knowledge of a domain. Okay, so if you have a business process or a domain, and then you want to explain the process or domain on a high level, right, to someone, so then you create a concept model. Okay, so a concept model, so it typically starts with a glossary, so which so where you have like the core noun concepts of a domain. So for example, loan, branch manager, bank, and all of that. Um, then then you create a concept model. Okay, so where you define the business rules. So on a high level, right? So your concept model will establish the relationship between nouns and verbs and other connections to explain a new domain or a business process. Okay, so the noun concepts are like the basic concepts, so which are simply givens in the space. For example, like loan or bank or borrower. So these are the noun concepts. Then you have verb concepts where you have fills, works for, provides, right? So these are verb concepts. Okay, so then you establish a linkage, and so where you explain, so it requires a special skill set based on so where you think like abstractly and then non-procedurally on how to explain any know-how or knowledge, right, to a foreign stakeholder. So somebody who's like external, maybe like a regulator or someone, right, you want to explain, so then you use a concept model. So what you see here, the concept model, right, is a simple model when for a loan application. Okay, so if we are working for a bank and we want to explain the loan application process for our bank, right, so what are on a high level to a regulator, then we use this. Okay, so maybe I'll say open the file to show you guys. Okay, I'm sharing my screen. Let me know when you guys can see my screen. I'm sharing the concept model for a loan application process. Can you see?
Yeah, Ravi.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So here, for example, so you have, so what are the noun concepts here? So you have a borrower, right? So borrower. So I'm assuming that, okay, so I'm explaining this concept model to you. So you have a borrower who fills in the loan application, right? So then, so we are linking the noun concepts using a verb concept. Okay. And then what is loan application is used to apply for loan. Okay. And so then loan application is submitted to the bank, right? And branch manager works for bank. Okay. Then you can have like a direction, so where which indicates what is the direction of this one. So something like this. Okay. Okay, so branch manager works for bank, right? And then branch manager makes assessment. Okay, so then you need to have another arrow here, which will indicate this direction. Okay, so branch manager makes assessment. Okay, and assessment is made for loan. Okay, and then the next one is, so you will have like genre also. So where you'll describe any subtopics. Okay, so for example, you have a loan. Okay, so a loan can be like secured loan or unsecured loan. So so secured loan is where you take collateral from the borrower. Unsecured is where you don't take collateral from the borrower. So collateral is something like, you can assume it like a fixed deposit. Okay. And so loan application is used to apply loan. Okay. So, and so for example, loan is offered by bank, right? So you can connect. So there is a connection here. So loan is offered by bank. Okay. So probably I'll put it here. And so assessment, so we take a fee for assessment. Okay, so fee is charged for loan application assessment. Okay, so you're getting it right. So we are kind of establishing a high level know-how on the loan application process for a borrower.
So Ravi, this is a UML language, or this is some other?
No, so this
Yeah.
is more of modeling. It's kind of yeah. So you can consider it more of one of the modeling languages. So not like a use case one, but it's more of a it's called concept modeling. Okay, so here the concept is loan application, and then I've modeled loan application concept here. Okay, so the so we normally concept model when we have to explain the process to an external party. Okay, so someone who's not directly related to the operations or business teams or internal teams. Okay, someone like a regulator or a external borrower, or someone who's external to the process that we are working in. Or it could be someone from a different team. Okay, so it could be like an anti-money laundering team that wants to understand. Okay, or it could be a compliance team or any other team, right? So then we design a concept model. Okay, so if you see here, we are not like getting into the details of the process, right? So we are just giving whatever is exactly required for the concept. Any questions?
Hi, Surya.
Yeah.
So do we do all these techniques for each and every project, or how is it like company wise?
That's a good question, actually. So we don't do all of these techniques like in every project. So based on the requirement, right? We decide which one we have to do. So it's not mandatory that we do like everything. So they keep coming on and off. So we need to decide which is the right technique for what situation.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so maybe we'll just cover one more technique if you guys are fine. So the next one is interface analysis. Okay, so interface analysis is so so interface is nothing but think of something that connects to two different applications. Okay, so interface analysis is used to identify where, what, why, when, how, and for whom information is exchanged between two applications or two solution components. Okay, so an interface could be two solutions, or it could be a user as well. So it could be a user interface as well, right? So interface analysis requires a bit of technical understanding as well, because if interface, so when two systems are connected, right, they can be connected through APIs, so application programming interface, or they can be connected through message queues, or they can be connected through JMS messages, or they can be connected through direct database pull. So there are like different ways in which two systems can be connected. But what you're majorly looking at here is, so you're just identifying what all are required to describe the interface. Okay, so what goes into the interface. Okay, so you define what is the coverage or span of the interface, and what is the method in which information will be exchanged, what is the message format. Okay, so what is the exchange frequency, all of that is defined. So I'll just give you an example. Okay, so for example, you are the business analyst, and then you have to perform interface analysis between your net banking application and your payment gateway, right? So now you have to create an interface analysis document, or maybe you have to perform interface analysis, right? So what will you do here? So first thing is, so what is the name of this interface? So the name of this interface is like payment gateway interface, right? Then, so is it a two-way communication, or is it one-way communication? So which means, so once the payment is initiated in net banking, it reaches the interface. Think of interface like more like a program. Okay, so which is lying in between two different systems. Okay, so you generate a request, the request goes through the program, and the program sends the request to payment gateway, and the payment gateway has to acknowledge you back, right? So it's a two-way interface, right? So you say, okay, so I've done the interface analysis, so it is a two-way interface, right? And then what is the frequency at which this information should be exchanged? Okay, so the frequency is like real time. So whenever the customer makes the payment, right? So it is real time. Okay, so sometimes what happens is you may do like end of day. So frequency could be end of day. It could be like once a day early morning. Okay, so it could be like end of week, depending on what kind of interface you're dealing with. So you look at what is the frequency, then how is this message exchanged. Okay, so is the message exchange in XML format or CSV format? Okay, or is it like a JMS message? Okay, so Java message service. So how is this message exchanged? Okay, or is it like a TXT format? Okay, and then you look at what are the different scenarios in which these messages could be exchanged. Okay, so for example, let's say we initiate a new payment, then it goes and then you get an acknowledgement back, right? Or for example, let's say you're dealing with a trading system, so where you sent out the payment and then you want to cancel the payment. Okay, so you can have a new payment, and then you can have cancel, or you can have an amend as well, right? So you have like three different flows. So you need to document three different flows here, and the format in which, and what are the values. So what are the fields you will send in the request? Okay, so in the request you will send amount, you'll send account number, you will send beneficiary, right? And you will send date, and you will send transfer type like NEFT, RTGS, or IMPS, right? So all of these come under interface analysis. Okay, so basically you are studying the exchange of information between two solutions and documenting whatever is required to make that happen.
So Ravi, here you told that there are so many means the points that has to be taken into account, like what is the format, if it's a two-way, if it's a real time. So
Yep.
is there any specific keywords or kind of requirements that has to be taken care in this interface analysis, or it is again kind of scenario basis?
It is actually scenario basis, because what happens is this interface analysis you may do for some internal process. Well, for example, let's say if you want to consume an internal CSV file from one system to another system, right? So then you will just consume it. You will define what is the format, frequency, and then what are the different scenarios, how to handle loading, how to handle if the file is not loaded successfully, failure mechanisms, and all of that, right? But let's say if you're dealing with an external system like payment gateway, okay, so you take care of a lot more things like, okay, should the data be encrypted? Okay, so what is the protocol that you'll use? Will you use like HTTPS, or so should it be like secure? Okay, should you encrypt the data? So when somebody who has access to this interface server, right? So if they open the message, what information should they be able to see? Okay, so how should we handle the errors when the interface has not pushed so the request has reached interface, but it didn't go to the payment gateway. So how should we handle this? So it depends on you should wear your investigator hat and then think of like different scenarios. Okay, and this comes with practice. When you analyze like a couple of interfaces, right, you will know what exactly to look for.
Yeah, that is the most important thing that I got here, because you can refer what is externally and what is internally, where to do it on the basis of encrypting it and where not to.
So you will,
For a
so
new
as
one,
business analysts, right? We are not like specialists. So for example, you don't need to know what is the software that needs to be used for encryption. Okay. So for example, should you use PGP encryption or NGP encryption? So you're not expected to know. Okay. So all you need to know is, okay, so we are dealing with customer sensitive data. We need to encrypt this information. So then I will engage my solution architect. Okay. So he will decide what public key you have to use, what private key you have to use to encrypt. Okay,
maybe this scenario may be coming from the stakeholder also, that they want it to be a kind of a secured process. So then you kind of come out how to make it a secured process, something of those.
yeah, but very rarely your stakeholders will think of that. Okay, so unless you ask them, right, whether they should be encrypted, so they would say, okay, so as long as my payment is successful, I'm fine. Okay, so they're not worried. But your risk team or your internal security team, right, they would be worried if you don't encrypt this data.
In that case, it's kind of a team effort that is going on. Not only so we can give our feedbacks, we can make it our process, but anyways, it will be in a complete teamwork that feedback comes on and on and on. It's like that.
Yeah,
Kind
correct.
of, as you
Yeah.
told.
So here your stakeholders would be like your development team, then your solution architects, your enterprise architects, right? So you will be conducting sessions with them. So then you will be making notes of all the requirements related to interface. So where your business will give requirements is, okay, what is the frequency? Okay. And what is the method in which they want the response? Okay, so how should the response be shown to the user? So these are some of the requirements your users will provide you with.
Okay, so we have to go ahead with a team meeting kind of a stuff related to feedback, and then coming ahead with this interference analysis.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and then it's okay. Got it.
Okay, so we have quite a lot of more techniques, so probably we'll continue tomorrow again. Okay? So the idea is that, okay, so don't be overwhelmed that, okay, so there are like, we are learning like too many techniques now. So you won't be using most of these techniques, okay? So you will be using these techniques on a very special case basis, okay? So what you normally do is, so you prepare your user story, you prepare your BRDs and FSDs. These are like very special techniques which you will be using whenever the need comes, okay? This is not something that you'll be using like day in and day out across, okay? So interface analysis you'll be using whenever you have like interface, but other techniques, right? So think of them like, you know, think of like Indian Army, right? So we have so many missiles and weapons, right? So how frequently do we use them, right? So we rarely use them. We use them only when
Ravi, I have to drop. I have a meeting. I have
yeah,
to
yeah,
drop. Okay.
yeah.
So
Okay, okay,
just
yeah,
for your reference, I have put the FSD file to you. Just have a
yeah,
check on that.
yeah. Okay, okay, fine then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Speak tomorrow then. Bye.
Thank you.